Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather to reflect on one of the most intriguing dynamics of our time, how America continues to outsmart India in the arena of global politics. For decades, both nations have projected themselves as rising forces, but their strategies, priorities, and execution on the world stage reveal a clear difference. America's ability to build and sustain strategic alliances has been one of its greatest strengths in global politics, and this alone often places it several steps ahead of India. The United States learned long ago that true power is not simply about economic wealth or military might, but about the ability to bring other nations into its orbit and make them part of a larger structure that advances American interests. This principle is visible in its long-standing military pacts like NATO, which not only ties the defense of Europe to Washington, but also allows the US to have a permanent say in the future of the continent. Through NATO, America secured decades of influence, positioning itself as the indispensable partner without whom peace and security would be nearly impossible. India, in contrast, has avoided such rigid alliances, partly due to its historical policy of non-alignment, which, though noble in intent, has often left it without reliable partners in moments of crisis. Beyond NATO, America has carefully crafted partnerships in nearly every region of the world. In Asia, it has built security arrangements with Japan, South Korea, and Australia there, ensuring that its presence in the Indo-Pacific is unshakable. More recently, the United States has also spearheaded the QAD alliance, bringing India, Australia, and Japan into a framework designed to counter China's growing assertiveness. While India is a key player in this alliance, it is undeniable that America plays the dominant role in shaping the narrative, agenda, and direction. This demonstrates how America positions itself as the leader in multilateral settings, ensuring that allies follow its broader strategy rather than creating one of their own. The economic dimension of alliances also cannot be ignored. The US has extensive trade agreements, defense pacts there, and investment deals that tie the economic prosperity of nations to its own. This means that countries often have a vested interest in aligning with Washington, even when disagreements arise. India, while growing rapidly as an economic power, does not yet have the same capacity to extend financial or military guarantees to its partners. It is admired for its growth and stability, but it does not serve as the cornerstone of another nation's security or prosperity in the way that America does. America's alliances are not just about formal treaties, they're also about influence through soft power. The cultural reach of the United States, from Hollywood to Silicon Valley, gives it a unique ability to strengthen its image among allies and even adversaries. When nations see America not only as a military superpower, but also as a land of opportunity, innovation, and freedom, they are more willing to align themselves with its policies. India has its own cultural strengths, such as Bollywood and its global diaspora, but its influence does not yet translate into strategic alignments in the same way. The ability to craft alliances allows America to spread its influence without directly engaging in every conflict. It multiplies its power by making others invest in its vision. While India is still striving to find the same level of global trust and leadership, one of the most striking features of American dominance in global politics is its extraordinary ability to control narratives. The United States has mastered the art of shaping how the world perceives not only itself, but also its allies and adversaries. This power of storytelling often carries more weight than hard power because in international politics, perception can dictate reality. America projects itself as the defender of democracy, human rights, and global order. And while its actions may not always align perfectly with these ideals, the narrative is strong enough to maintain its legitimacy in the eyes of many nations. Through speeches, diplomatic statements, and the framing of events, Washington ensures that its perspective is often seen as the default truth in international debates. India, while respected for its democratic values and cultural depth, does not yet possess the same global machinery to spread its narrative on such a massive scale. The influence of American media plays a central role in this dominance. Outlets like CNN, the New York Times, and even entertainment giants like Hollywood produce content consumed across the globe, reinforcing certain images of America as the land of opportunity, freedom, and leadership. These narratives subtly mold international audiences, creating sympathy for American ideals and skepticism toward its rivals. India has Bollywood, a massive cultural industry with global reach, but it tends to focus more on entertainment than shaping political discourse. This difference makes the American narrative sharper, more strategic, and more effective in influencing perceptions of global politics. America's universities and think tanks serve as intellectual engines of narrative control. Institutions like Harvard, Yale, and Stanford, along with policy research organizations, produce studies, theories, and policy recommendations that are consumed worldwide. These shape how the global elite, policymakers, and media outlets understand pressing issues, whether it is defining terrorism after 9/11, framing climate change debates, or creating the vocabulary around Indo-Pacific strategy. The United States often sets the terms of conversation. India, while it has strong academic institutions, does not yet wield this level of intellectual influence in the global marketplace of ideas. Technology also amplifies America's ability to dominate narratives. Companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are not just business giants, but also platforms that decide what information is accessible, popular, and trending. The algorithms of these platforms, often influenced by American values and policies, end up shaping the global political conversation. For example, when the US government takes a stance on a geopolitical conflict, that narrative can quickly spread worldwide through these platforms, eclipsing alternative viewpoints. India has a growing tech industry, but it does not yet control the global digital platforms in the same way. Perhaps most importantly, America's narrative building is proactive rather than reactive. It rarely waits for others to define the story. Instead, it launches campaigns, slogans, and initiatives that frame issues before its rivals can. India, in contrast, often finds itself defending its positions rather than defining the global storyline. This reactive posture limits its influence because, in politics, the side that sets the narrative usually controls the outcome. America's strength in global politics is deeply rooted in its economic leverage, which extends far beyond the size of its economy. At the heart of this power lies the US dollar, the world's primary reserve currency. Because most international trade, from oil to high-tech goods, is conducted in dollars, nations across the globe are compelled to hold vast reserves of American currency. This gives the United States an unparalleled advantage. It can influence international financial flows. impose sanctions with devastating effect, and borrow money at lower costs compared to other nations. When America enforces economic penalties against rivals, such as restricting access to the dollar-based system, the consequences ripple across the global economy. India, despite its fast-growing economy, does not enjoy this level of control since its currency is not yet internationally dominant. Another dimension of American economic leverage is its leadership in global financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. These institutions, though technically multilateral, operate with significant American influence because of the country's voting power and historical role in their creation. Through these platforms, Washington can shape global economic policies, set the terms of financial assistance, and influence how developing nations integrate into the world economy. India, while a member of these organizations, often finds itself as a participant rather than a decision maker. The absence of such institutional clout makes it harder for India to use economics as a strategic tool at the same scale. Trade agreements and investment networks also highlight America's superiority. The United States has built a global economic web through free trade agreements, defense, related industrial partnerships, and large-scale investments that tie other countries' prosperity to its own. Multinational corporations headquartered in America, from Apple to Amazon, not only drive innovation, but also embed American influence in the economies of dozens of nations. When countries depend on American companies for technology, infrastructure, or consumer markets, they naturally align with US policies. India has made strides with its Make in India and digital initiatives, but it is still in the process of building comparable global economic interdependence. Furthermore, America's dominance in innovation-based sectors adds another layer of leverage. The technology giants of Silicon Valley are not just businesses. They are tools of soft and hard power. They create ecosystems that the world depends on, from operating systems to cloud computing infrastructure. By controlling much of this technology, the US can dictate standards, norms, and access in a way that enhances its political power. India has a vibrant technology sector and has emerged as an IT outsourcing hub. But it does not yet set the global rules in the same way. Finally, the perception of America as a safe economic haven plays a crucial role. During times of global uncertainty, capital flows into the US, strengthening its financial stability. This trust allows Washington to take bold moves, even when its own economy faces challenges. India, while increasingly respected, does not yet command this level of confidence in global markets. Economic leverage, therefore, remains a decisive tool that allows America to outsmart India and most of its rivals in global politics. America's global dominance is closely tied to its unmatched military superiority, a factor that consistently gives it an edge over nations like India in the realm of global politics. The United States has invested trillions of dollars in building not only the most advanced military technology, but also a far-reaching global infrastructure of bases, alliances, and logistical networks. This means that America is not restricted to defending its borders. It has the capacity to project power anywhere on the planet within hours. Aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, stealth bombers, and a highly sophisticated missile defense system give Washington a level of deterrence and influence that no other country, including India, can currently match. The very presence of American forces across multiple continents sends a clear signal that its reach is global, not regional. India, while maintaining one of the largest standing armies and being a nuclear power, largely remains focused on regional security concerns, particularly its borders with Pakistan and China. Its military has impressive manpower and growing capabilities, but it lacks the kind of expeditionary forces that allow the US to intervene in conflicts far from its shores. For example, during crises in the Middle East, Eastern Europe, or Africa, the United States can rapidly deploy troops, enforce no-fly zones, or conduct precision strikes. India, on the other hand, is primarily structured for defending its immediate sphere of influence. This regional focus limits its ability to shape global events in the same way America does. Technology further amplifies American superiority. From drone warfare to cyber capabilities, the US leads in integrating cutting-edge innovations into its military strategies. Its investments in artificial intelligence, space militarization, and advanced surveillance give it an edge in modern warfare, where information and precision matter as much as brute force. India is making progress in these areas with developments in space technology and missile systems, but the gap remains significant. America's continuous innovation pipeline ensures that it stays ahead of competitors, maintaining the ability to dictate the pace of military modernization worldwide. America's military alliances enhance its strength through NATO and bilateral defense agreements. It essentially multiplies its power by linking its security with that of dozens of nations. This means American soldiers do not stand alone. They are part of a networked defense system spanning the globe. India, while deepening its cooperation through forums like the Q-Aid, has not yet built comparable military alliances. Its historical policy of non-alignment limited its opportunities to develop such structures, leaving it more isolated in terms of coordinated global defense partnerships. Another layer of US superiority is its defense industry, which is both an economic powerhouse and a diplomatic tool. By being the world's largest arms exporter, America not only strengthens its allies, but also creates long-term dependencies on its technology and support systems. India is a major arms importer and is only recently pushing to become more self-reliant, which still leaves it reliant on outside suppliers for much of its advanced weaponry. This vast military advantage allows the United States not just to defend itself, but to shape international norms, intervene in crises, and deter adversaries on a global scale. India, despite being a strong military power in its own right, cannot yet compete with the US in terms of reach, technology, and alliances, which is why America continues to hold the upper hand in global politics. One of the most remarkable advantages America enjoys in global politics is its skillful use of diplomatic maneuvering, a craft it has refined over decades of engaging with allies, rivals, and emerging powers. The United States has built a reputation for playing the long game, using a mix of persuasion, pressure, and strategic timing to secure outcomes that serve its interests. What makes American diplomacy stand out is its flexibility. It can be firm when necessary, but it can also present itself as a mediator, a partner, or even a benevolent leader, depending on the situation. This ability to shift roles allows Washington to remain relevant in virtually every global issue, whether it is climate change, trade disputes, or security crisis. India, though respected for its diplomacy, often takes a more cautious and reactive approach. which sometimes diminishes its ability to drive outcomes in its favor. America's diplomatic influence is also magnified by its network of embassies, consulates, and international organizations. It maintains one of the largest diplomatic corps in the world, ensuring that its voice is present wherever decisions are being made. This expansive presence allows the US to gather intelligence, influence narratives, and build coalitions quickly. India, while it has an active diplomatic presence, cannot match the scale or reach of American diplomacy. Consequently, Washington often sets the agenda in international forums, while New Delhi works hard to find its place within those conversations. Another aspect of America's maneuvering is its ability to manage rivalries and alliances simultaneously. For instance, it can criticize China for human rights abuses while maintaining deep economic ties. It can impose sanctions on countries like Russia while keeping open channels of negotiation when necessary. This balancing act ensures that even adversaries cannot fully disengage from the United States. India, by contrast, tends to take more rigid stances, which sometimes limits its diplomatic flexibility. Its relationships with neighbors like Pakistan and China, for example, remain locked in cycles of hostility, leaving little room for creative maneuvering. Soft power also plays a role in America's diplomatic strategies. By promoting values such as democracy, freedom, and human rights, the US builds a moral narrative around its actions. Even when critics point out contradictions in its policies, the image of America as a champion of liberty persists in many parts of the world. This gives Washington an advantage in framing its moves as morally justified, even when they are driven by self-interest. India has soft power through its culture, diaspora, and democratic identity, but it has not yet mastered the ability to consistently translate that into diplomatic capital. Finally, America's diplomatic maneuvering benefits from its integration of economic, military, and cultural tools. Rarely does Washington rely on diplomacy alone. It aligns its foreign policy with sanctions, defense pacts, trade agreements, and cultural influence to create a comprehensive strategy. India, while growing in these areas, tends to compartmentalize its efforts, which weakens their overall impact. The ability to weave all these instruments together is what allows America to continually outmaneuver India and many others on the global stage. America's strength in global politics is not only built on its military and economic might, but also on its unrivaled capacity for innovation and influence. The United States has consistently positioned itself as the world's leader in technological breakthroughs, research, and cultural exports, which in turn amplify its global presence. Innovation in America is driven by a powerful ecosystem that includes world-class universities, well-funded research institutions, and private companies that push the boundaries of science and technology. Silicon Valley, for example, is not merely a hub for startups. It is a symbol of America's ability to shape the future. Technologies developed there, from the internet to artificial intelligence, have redefined how the world communicates, does business, and even engages in politics. India, while increasingly recognized for its IT sector and entrepreneurial spirit, is still catching up in terms of producing groundbreaking innovations that shift global paradigms. Another dimension of America's influence is its dominance in cultural exports. Hollywood movies, American music, fashion, and lifestyle continue to capture imaginations across the globe. This soft power builds an image of the United States not just as a nation, but as a way of life that many aspire to emulate. Cultural influence often precedes political influence because it creates familiarity, admiration, and even dependency on American media and trends. India has Bollywood, which is a cultural giant in its own right, particularly in Asia and the Middle East, but it does not yet match the universal reach or political impact of American cultural exports. America's innovative edge is also closely linked to its dominance in strategic industries, in areas such as aerospace. Biotechnology, defense technology, and space exploration, the US continues to set global standards. Its companies are often the first movers, and its patents and technologies become benchmarks for the rest of the world. This creates dependencies as other nations are compelled to adopt or adapt American technology in order to stay competitive. India has achieved remarkable progress in space research through organizations like ISRO and in pharmaceuticals, but it is still building the kind of global influence that America wields in these industries. The digital world provides another example of American supremacy. Tech giants like Google, Microsoft, Apple, Meta, and Amazon are not just corporations, but instruments of global influence. They control the flow of information, data, and digital infrastructure in a way that allows the US to subtly shape global communication and commerce. Policies and decisions made in Silicon Valley ripple across the world, influencing governments, businesses, and individuals. India, with its booming digital economy and successful startups like Infosys, TCS, and Flipkart, is on an upward trajectory, but has not yet reached the level where its platforms dictate global norms and usage. Finally, America's innovation-driven influence extends into global governance. By leading in research and technology, it secures leadership roles in setting international standards, from internet governance to climate policies. Innovation becomes a tool of politics, ensuring that the US remains central to decision-making. India is gaining recognition as a rising innovator, but it still operates in the shadow of America's vast technological and cultural influence, which continues to outsmart competitors in shaping the future of global politics. In examining the dynamics of global politics, it becomes clear that America continues to outsmart India through a combination of strategy, resources, and influence. Its ability to forge powerful alliances, control narratives, leverage the dollar, project unmatched military power, maneuver diplomatically, and dominate through innovation gives Washington a multifaceted advantage. India, despite its rapid rise, strong democracy, cultural depth, and growing economic power, remains more regionally focused and often reactive rather than proactive. While India's achievements in technology, space exploration, and diplomacy are impressive, they have yet to translate into the kind of global dominance America wields. However, this does not diminish India's potential. Rather, it highlights the gap between an established superpower and a rising one. The challenge for India lies in transforming its strengths into global influence, while America's challenge is to sustain its edge in an ever-changing world order.